The Philippines, though a democratic country, is still captive by poverty. It is a cage that has to be opened to free the people. And education is our key. Education in the Philippines has come a long way, with constant revolts juggling our educational system to carve the perfect key and unlock the gates of plagues, especially of poverty. Let's take a short trip to the past and compare it with our current and what is ahead of us in the future. Informal education started in the pre-colonial period, supervised by their parents and tribal tutors. Knowledge passed generation to generation through oral tradition. They learned about practical vocations, and the medium of writing was by bayin. When the Spaniards came, tribunal tutors were replaced by the Spanish missionaries. The first formal education was religion-oriented, offered to the elite in the society. Fast forward, the first free public education system was born through Education Decree of 1863 and was managed by the government. They opened at least 2 primary schools in each town, one for the boys and the other for the girls. Spanish-American War halted the progress of these schools, but later opened in 1898. More schools were established, including those of law, military, and literary university. Our prominent heroes like Dr. Jose Rizal were some of the pioneering graduates. English was the medium of instruction. They followed the 10-year basic education system, 6 years elementary and 4 years secondary schooling. In 1902, Act No. 372 authorized the opening of provincial high schools. After 6 years, in 1908, Act No. 1870 initiated the opening of University of the Philippines, which is now the country's national university. In 1947, after the U.S. turned over its authority to the Philippines, President Manuel Rojas issued Executive Order No. 94, which renamed Department of Instruction into Department of Education. Later, it was changed into different other names. In 1991, DEX was divided into 3 different parts. In 1994, the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, and the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or TESDA, was created. In the past years, critics said that we have a declining educational standard in the Philippine education system during the first decade of the 21st century. Alarmingly, the youth literacy rate, while still being high by regional standard, fell from 96.6% in 1990 to 95.1% in 2003, making the Philippines the only country in Southeast Asia with declining youth literacy rate. Such deficiencies were reflected in the poor performance of Filipino students in international assessment tests, such as the Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study, or the TIMSS. In 2003, the last year the Philippines participated in the study, the country ranked only 34th out of 38 countries in high school mathematics, and 43rd out of 46 countries in high school science. Education spending as percentage of overall government expenditure, meanwhile, declined from 18.2% in 1998 to 12.4% in 2005. DepEd is pointing finger on our educational system as culprit of these problems. They believe that the following problems have to be addressed. Number 1. Congested curriculum resulting to poor performance. It is believed that graduates of high school education do not fully master the basic competencies. In fact, 19% of elementary graduates are not functionally literate, according to Action for Economic Reforms and ENED 2008. As a result, graduates achieve poor markings in various international and national examinations. The short span of basic education was to blame, according to DepEd. Number 2. High school graduates are not ready to enter the university. The presence of general education subjects in colleges is one solid proof that graduates of high school are not quite ready to enter the next level, according to DepEd. Number 3. Unprepared high school graduates to enter the labor market. Graduates of the old system are considered too young to legally work, put up business, or signed any contracts. One unfavorable factor is their age, which is usually 16 years old after high school graduation, and thus considered minor. Other than that, they have insufficient knowledge for a certain skill. Number 4. Short basic education years, which do not align to the global standard. Being the only country in Asia and one of the 3 countries in the world with the least number of pre-college school year, it's understandable that our graduates do not automatically merit acknowledgement in some countries. So what is the government doing to address these issues? To address these shortcomings, the Philippine government initiated structural changes in the basic education system and significantly boosted education expenditure. In 2010, then Senator Benigno Aquino III expressed his desire to implement the K-12 basic education cycle to increase the number of years and compulsory education to 13 years. According to him, this will give everyone an equal chance to succeed and to have quality education and profitable jobs. After further consultations and studies, the government under President Aquino formally adopted the K-642 basic education system. 1 year of kindergarten, 6 years of elementary education, 4 years of junior high school education, and 2 years of senior high school education. The Kindergarten Education Act, passed in 2001, enacted a mandatory pre-elementary year of kindergarten education, while the 2013 Basic Education Act extended the elementary and secondary education cycle from 10 years basic education to 12 years. This new 12 years education cycle, or K-12, adds 2 years of mandatory senior secondary schooling for every Filipino student. It shall be given free to all public schools, while private schools shall receive assistance from the government. Another implication of the new system is the use of the mother tongue. In the new system, a child must be taught in his mother tongue as a medium of instruction from grades 1 to 3. Mother languages like English and Tagalog will then be introduced from grade 4 to 6, which is considered transition period. In the new system, they will have a track for specialization. One aim of the law is to prepare high school graduates to enter the labor market through exposure and actual experience with a certain field through immersion. In the additional 2 years in senior high school, the students will have a chance to develop the track fitted to their interest and capability. Among these tracks are academic, technical vocational livelihood, sports, and arts and designs, aligning to global standard. Since the basic school year in the Philippines is one of the shortest in the world, our graduates are not automatically considered professional abroad in some cases. Shifting to 12-year program accelerates the recognition of our graduates in foreign countries. In 2017, through current President Rodrigo Duterte, a law was promulgated mandating the government through all state universities and colleges to provide free tertiary education to all Filipino citizens. The mandate does not include private schools. To fuel this revolution of the education system, spending was increased greatly. In 2018, allocations for education increased by another 1.7% and currently stand at 533 billion pesos. The higher education budget likewise was increased by almost 45% in between 2016 and 2017. To accommodate the reforms, 86,000 classrooms were constructed and over 128,000 new teachers hired in the Philippines between 2010 and 2015 alone. After few years, positive outcomes of the new system are visible. The student-teacher ratio improved from 38.1 in 2010 to 29:1 in 2013. The student classroom ratio plunged to 47:1 in 2015 from 64:1 in 2013. Secondary enrollment rates increased in elementary and preschool. Levels of kindergarten enrollment in the Philippines now compare favorably with the rates in other middle-income countries, both within the region and globally. Although the new system sounds promising, it still faces a lot of hindrances. Firstly is the financial restraint. According to DepEd Secretary Leonor Briones, despite the creation of 40,000 teachers item for the program, there is still a gap to fill in the teachers and classroom demand. While on the other hand, teachers and non-teaching staff from higher education institutions feared to lose their job due to lack of college enrollees. Financial restraint also resulted to insufficient materials like textbooks, teacher's manual, and other educational equipment to cope with the standard of K-12 system. This, however, is not new to the department since it had never reached their desired budget from previous years. Financial plague does not only limit on the side of the government. Some parents also feel this additional year as an additional burden to them. Although the government commits to a free basic education, it is still a headache for many less fortunate Filipinos to provide for the food, transportation, and other expenses of their children. Second, the length of years effect on learning. Debate is still going on as to the adding of basic school years would really cure the poor performance of our graduates. According to Philip and Porteous study in 2010, data sets showed that longer education cycles do not necessarily result in better team scores. Furthermore, 2005 Education for All Global Monitoring Report pointed out that lengthening the learning time did not necessarily lead to better performance. These studies suggest that improving the quality of education through effective teaching is more effective than lengthening the span of time. Third, complying with the global standards will not benefit everyone. They argue that this idea is not beneficial to all, and thus it must be optional. Aligning to the standard of foreign countries is only applicable to those who are planning to work abroad. Additional years of study must not become a burden for everyone, and those who will not benefit from it must be spared. Fourth, new curriculum, trainings, and bilingual teaching issues. According to critics, additional years of schooling would deem useless if the teachers, facilitators, and those in the academe do not have sufficient knowledge as inputs. Coping with the new system requires more pre-service and in-service trainings to our educators, which are not always shouldered by the government's fund. It is also an additional burden for teachers to learn the subject matter in their mother tongue, as these subjects were learned and taught to them in English. Whether or not the new system is advantageous, it is still too early to tell. So, what are your thoughts about it?